This video is brought to you by BTI Institute, a New Jersey leader in certification-based management training.
For our last Agile discussion group of the year, I'm really pleased to invite our guest speaker, Erkan Kadir. He's spoken with us, in the past, and he's really well known in the Agile community, and he's actually from Canada. And I've worked with him on a number of different things and projects, and I've participated in his training and everything. It's all been great. And we actually have a partnership with his company. And if he has a couple of minutes at the end, he can maybe talk about it, as far as the types of courses that he's offering. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Erkan.
Hey, wonderful. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to be here with you today. Bob, thanks for the intro, and John, thanks always for the intro. I've been at this chapter meeting before, and always had really good conversations, been well received. So looking forward to seeing where the night takes us. So what we're going to be talking today about is Agile career journey mapping. So why are we talking about this? Well, obviously the world is continuing to change pace very quickly. And our careers are in a place where they need to continue to evolve with everything that's happening around us. So they can require a little bit of strategic planning. So this presentation is going to explore how to navigate your potential or your professional journey in the Agile space, just with everything that's going on right now. All right. So specifically, some things that we're going to cover, we're going to be talking about the Agile landscape as overall, at least my perspective of it. We're going to be talking about what that means for how we market ourselves as Agilist. Specifically, you're going to hear me talking about a skills-based approach a lot tonight. And then this presentation is going to be happening in two parts. So it's going to be the first part, we're going to do a little bit of learning. And then in the second half here on sections 3 and 4, we're going to do a workshop where we're going to give you some time to set some goals and plan your next steps in your Agile career, whatever that is. Now, if you're like me, when you're joining these types of things virtually, and you've had a really long day at work, and you just want to come and you learn something, but you might not be, have the energy to collaborate or anything like that, I will just say, even though we're going to be doing some workshops, don't worry, I'm not going to put you into breakout rooms or anything like that. It's all going to be individual, so you can stay off camera. Or if you want to communicate in any way by coming off camera, coming off mute, totally fine with that. If you have questions along the way, you can just jump in. I'm not so good with chat while I'm in these things. So maybe John or Bob, if you see something in the chat, feel free to just stop me, and I'm happy to take questions at any time. Sound good? All right, cool. Let's jump right in. Okay, so this slide talks a little bit about why career planning is important. And so we can see that, whether we're in an Agile career path or not, or anything else, the average number of times that people change their jobs in a career is more than 12. And within that, there's 4 to 7 career shifts. So major pivots where you're doing something completely different than before. Like, that just blows my mind when I think about it. And, when I even think about my own career, it's amazing how that's happened. And so, with stats like this, I like to think that we're all Agile, even if we don't like to be or want to be, or even if we don't know anything about agility. So let's go ahead and deal with the elephant in the room. We've all seen the headlines. I see some people on video laughing a bit, right? Because we've heard different people on LinkedIn say Agile is dead or whatever in different regards. And, this started happening around, well, people have been saying it for 25 years, actually, but it really picked up around 2023 with the start of the downturn in the economy. And the bad news is there is some truth to this statement. However, the good news is that this statement doesn't tell the whole story. So let's look at a couple other pieces of data that'll help us sort of make sense as to what might be going on here. The actual truth is that, yeah, okay, Agile is kind of dead right now, but everything's dead right now. And so just for fun, I did a Google search where I just wrote down like the first word of all of the different jobs that I used to think were really hot, just to see what other people were searching for, because Google will complete your search based on what the popular trends are in Google searches. And I did do this on a browser that I wasn't logged in and all that stuff, so it's not just me. But what's interesting is you can see when you write something like software development, the very first autocomplete is dead. Project management is dead. UX design, couple down, is dead. Agile, of course, dead. Everything's dead. And so why did everything die all of a sudden? Honestly, I couldn't find anything that isn't dead. All right. And so, yeah, things are down, but here's what I think's going on. I think the economy is just down right now. And so things aren't dead. They're just in a downturn on the economy. So this graph comes from the Federal Reserve Economic data site by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. And it's up to date as of yesterday, I think, or the day before. And so what this shows is that, at the start of the pandemic, software developers were being hired like crazy. And that was happening all over, really even globally, even though this is looking at US. And then at the start of, 2022, 2023, we started to see the bottom really start to fall out. All right. Now, of course, software developers, or at least them having a job, is a bit of a canary in a coal mine for us as Agilists, because at the end of the day, what do? We help software developers work better. And so if there are no software development jobs, then all of the service industries around that particular role are going to be feeling a bit of a pinch right now. And so you might have seen around the same time, there's a lot less Agile coaching jobs. There's a lot less Scrum Master jobs. People are holding on to their jobs a lot longer than they normally would have, because they see what's happening in the job market. We all know people who have, applied for 400 jobs or whatever on LinkedIn, and they haven't heard back yet. And so, so you might see this as like bad news, but I see it as actually good news. I see it as really good news, because I was sad when I saw that Agile deadline, and I was worried about what it meant. But to me, this means that Agile is not dead. It just means that the economy is in a down slump, and everything will either be back eventually, or nothing will be back eventually. And so we might as well treat it as though everything will be back eventually. And so I also found out that this idea of Agile is dead, it's really just, when I took all this data into account, it's really just a cognitive bias called selective perception. And that's where people misjudge a situation because broader data is ignored. It's like, yeah, all this stuff's happening in the economy, but you're only focusing on like the headlines for your specific job. But when you zoom out, you see it's really not about you or about your role or whatever. And, that can be comforting. So, here's the good news. Well, there's a few pieces of good news, but one of them is that Agile is not dead. It's just dissolved. And I love this term. I didn't make it up. I want to give somebody credit. I wasn't able to find the guy, but I heard this and I loved it. And so what it means by Agile being dissolved is that Agile is now being used in almost every single company, knowledge creation and innovation company globally right now. And that means that, maybe there's not a whole bunch of new companies who are just discovering Agile for the first time. And, if that's your bread and butter with respect to like Scrum training or Agile adoptions or something like that, you might be noticing that there's less work. But that doesn't mean that that Agile's dead. It means that everyone's using it, right? And so that means your skills are actually more in demand than ever. And that's really good news because it means that as Agilists, we didn't lose because Agile died and went away. It means we won, right? What is your goal as an Agilist? It's to spread Agile. And if it's now in every company, well, we should be celebrating, right? So that's really cool. However, it's not something, and this is where the Agile career journey mapping comes in. It's not something where if you have some Agile skills, it's not something that's going to get you hired on its own anymore. You can't just say, hey, I'm good at Agile and that's it. Hire me and I'll help you do it. You have to pair it with other things, okay? It doesn't mean you shouldn't focus on that skill or improving that skill because you also can't get hired without it, right? But now it's a piece of a larger puzzle. So now you might be thinking, well, okay, that's great, Erkan. We won, fine, but winning's not going to put groceries on the table for my family. And this is not fair. Why does it have to be my career that's dissolving, right? And why can't it be the other careers that are dissolving everywhere? And actually, I won't call it good news, but misery does love company. The news there is everything is dissolving right now thanks to AI. So a couple things I just want to point out here. There's this quote on the screen on the left from the Windsurf CEO. So if you're not familiar with Windsurf, it's one of the hottest like vibe coding tools right now, where you can turn English language into computer programs. And it was recently purchased by OpenAI for $3 billion. So he has this quote where he says, "The days of traditional software developer are likely numbered. This notion of just a developer is probably going to broaden out to what's called a builder. Traditional developers may no longer be the ones building software. I think everyone is going to be a builder." And that to me is so on point because expertise now is cheap. We can all access expertise from any walk of life through the different AI tools that we're using. And we are now expected in organizations, if we're going to make ourselves valuable, to be one of those catalyst type peoples that can go and get expertise from different areas and pull them together and create more than you could before. So the second point here, AI agents. So AI agents are causing all jobs to dissolve because, again, you can go and get that expertise. If I want to have some expert, UX opinion on what my website looks like, I can just ask ChatGPT to look at it and give me some tips, and it'll do a pretty good job. And so entire Scrum teams are being replaced by a single person that is enhanced with AI agents. And so, like it or not, AI is taking jobs right now. There's probably going to be new jobs coming up, but that's happening. I've noticed that CEOs have had a pretty slimy talk track on this for a few years where, like last year they were saying pretty unanimously, AI is not going to take any jobs, but at the same time, every single company is reducing workforce through attrition due to that downturn, right? We're seeing that thing go down. They're like, oh, it's just the economy. Don't worry about it. Then it became a little bit more obvious. It was difficult to use that talk track as they continued to lay people off. And so they shifted to more explicit excuses. And so, like, just as an example, Shopify introduced a policy requiring teams to actually submit a business case proving that AI can't do the job before they request a new hire or any additional resource, right? And so you started to see policies like that coming in, stopping kind of new hires. But now they're not even trying to cover it up anymore. They're not even they're not even saying it's down, letting people go has any reason but AI. And so, just as an example, I noticed like Amazon CEO recently officially announced that they're going to be reducing corporate headcount due to efficiency gains from AI. So that stuff's happened. The third point here, with respect to everything dissolving, is from the Scrum Guide. There's this cool quote that says, Scrum recognizes no roles or hierarchy. Everyone is just a developer. So, and I'm paraphrasing, by the way. But if you take a look at that idea where everyone's just a developer and you match it up to what the Windsurf CEO said, where everyone's going to just be a builder, what does that look like to you? It's basically the exact same idea. And what's kind of cool is, again, as Agilists, the way I see this is we win. For the last 25 years, we've been pushing and espousing and bringing everybody into this world where we're trying to abolish titles on teams and call everybody a developer. Well, it's like, well, here we are, everyone. It's pretty uncomfortable even for us, but here we are, right? We called it. So pretty nuts. So here's what I think is going to happen. Jobs aren't going to go away. They're just going to shift probably to more small companies, these like really big companies that have 8 levels of hierarchy and 20,000 people and stuff. There's a lot of genuine inefficiencies there. And so those will probably be reduced. But because of these technologies, a lot more used cases now are possible, have been unlocked. And so there's going to be a lot of small companies that are going to be hiring like crazy. And they're going to be looking for builders like you and me that have agile skills as well as other skills. And you can use these tools to do amazing things that you couldn't do before. And so, yeah, I think we can future-proof by becoming that person who can hopefully do the work of, 5 people or whatever through augmentation and through becoming multi-skilled yourself. Okay, so where does that leave us? That kind of leaves us as kind of like a after hero, the hero in the movie who like won, but they're used to action now. It's like, what are they going to do? Another word for that is the disoriented victor. So we've completed our mission, and now we're a bit of adrift. And so what this means is it's time to upskill. And I love this quote from Alice in Wonderland, which I think just exemplifies the feeling in the world these days. So this is from the Red Queen. Now, here you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. And I don't know when Alice in Wonderland was written or whatever, but doesn't that feel like what it's like in today's economy? But luckily, as Agilists, you all are going to be way more equipped than anyone else to navigate personal and professional change. You have all of the tools, the skills on how to do that. Doesn't mean it's easy or fun or whatever, but you know how to do it. And so, gone are the days where we can just take like a 2-day CSM class and then rest on our laurels, for the rest of our career and just teach Scrum or whatever. And if we do that, then we're not living our values of continuous improvement and responding to rapid change. And so even if you're thinking, well, why don't we just like wait it out and see what skills are going to be valuable before we upskill? Because nobody really knows. AI is kind of taking, everything away, and like we don't know what's going to be left, right? So why don't we just wait? And so I don't like that approach. Instead, I think it's a lot more prudent to take what we call a no regrets strategy. And a no regret strategy is where you act in a way where, regardless of the result, it leaves you better off. And so upskilling is always going to be a no regret strategy because it leaves you better off in every single possible eventuality. It's kind of like the principle that smoke detectors use, that act in case pattern. It's never a bad thing for the detector to go off, and it's never a bad thing for you to upskill, and you never know where it's going to take you. Okay, so there's a lot of signals in the hiring market right now that are showing that the type of people that are being hired are not specific roles or people who can do a role. And that's because even the companies themselves don't know what roles are going to be important. And so they're hiring for flexibility. They're hiring for future flexibility. And so they're hiring people who can demonstrate a broad range of skills. And so the general advice right now is when you're putting together your resume, don't say, don't take a role-based approach like the one we have on the left, where you say, yeah, from 2014 to 2018, I was a team lead, then I was a project manager, then I was a senior analyst. That says it all, right? We've seen a lot of those resumes. I'm sure we all have one of those resumes in a folder somewhere. Instead, take a skills-based approach where you can show, hey, here's a few skills that I'm good at. Here's how I rate myself out of 10 or whatever. Here's some actual business impact that I've had applying these skills. Here's how I've pulled all these disparate skills together and did something amazing. And I did it 10 times faster because I was augmented by AI. Those are the stories that are really speaking to companies right now. One of the reasons why you've got a friend who has applied to 400 jobs on LinkedIn and hasn't heard back from any one of them is because there's this massive increase of what's called ghost postings or ghost roles on LinkedIn. And that's where a company is posting a job that they don't actually intend to hire. They're just putting it out there to see who they meet because they actually don't even know what they need. And so you see that Scrum Master job out there, you go for it. You see, okay, 100 people applied to this in 24 hours. It's like, yeah, good luck, right? But they're not even looking necessarily for a Scrum Master. They're just keeping a hook in the water. And if they happen to see somebody great and they happen to fit into their organization at a specific time, maybe they'll hire them, maybe they're not. So these aren't even like real jobs. And that's why it's important to just put your unique characteristics, like what makes you you with your unique blend of skills, put that out there. And there will be an organization who, because there's so many out there, that happen to be like a perfect fit for that in the perfect moment. And, if today there isn't a perfect fit, tomorrow there for sure will be because the world changes so fast. I want to, just on that same note, I want to read a line from the Skills in the New World of Work report from the Business Agility Institute. I'll send out a link to this after because I'm sure you'll ask. But they did a big study. This is one of the best studies, I think, in terms of like the agile job market. And what they concluded was organizations are expecting individuals to have multiple deep skill capabilities, not just one. For example, a Scrum Master with deep agile and technical expertise, or a manager with deep financial management and coaching skills. People should be trained in the skills that they need to perform across a variety of roles rather than being trained for one specific role. And you're seeing this like at the Scrum Alliance, where they're moving away from role-based certifications and going into skill-based micro credentials, so that people can level up on the specific like recipe that they need to succeed in their particular context. So all that to say is, my first tip for you tonight is use a skills-based resume, not a chronological list of jobs. Okay, and I might just pause there. Are there any questions so far that came up in the chat or anything? I saw a couple things in the chat. No. Okay. Cool. Let's keep going. So what we're going to do is we're going to move into the second part of this, which is going to be the workshopping part, where I'm going to give you a bit of a framework that you can use to plan out your next steps and what you want next for yourself in your journey. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do that as well. So, so to do that, we're going to create a career journey map. It's going to happen in these 4 steps. We're going to do a bit of an assessment as to where you are to see where the opportunities are. We're going to do some goal setting that in a bit of a fun way that I like to do it. Then I'm going to leave you with 2 specific tips that you can use to get started right away. Okay. So for the assessment, what I've got on the screen here is an Agile career skills wheel. And this, on it, you'll see 10 skills that are commonly sought after by hiring managers in tech companies. And so it's called Agile career skills, but it's really just, if you're planning to work in tech, these are more than likely going to apply. So we've got technical skills like coding and things at the top. We've got product strategy, agile delivery, security, people and change leadership, AI and machine language, of course, business and financial fluency, domain and industry expertise, and UX, and just user experience and customer centricity in general. There's also this little last section here that says what else, because in your specific context, there might be another spoke or a few that is important to track. So, okay. So we're gonna do a quick activity to do a self-assessment. Yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll just do that right now. So I'll invite you all to grab a piece of paper or just open up a Microsoft Word document, and you can write down kind of the 10 topics here. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to give yourself a score on each of them out of 3. And the scoring system is on the left. So a score of 1 is for learning. And if you get a score of 1, maybe you've completed a pretty good, well-recognized course or certification in that particular domain. Okay, that gives you 1 point. If you're applying, so you've actually produced a measurable outcome for an organization that you can talk about on your resume, you get 1 more point. That brings you up to 2 points. Okay. And if you're guiding, so you have specific stories where you've mentored others that you can talk about on your resume, or maybe you've spoke at a meetup like this about the topic or a conference, then that gives you another point. So you don't have to have the first 2 to get the 3, right? So just count up how many points you have and score yourself on these 10. And I'll just start a I don't know, 3-minute timer for that activity. If I can get my apps up. 1 second. Let's stop this.
Can you make that wheel bigger so you can see the topics?
Definitely. Okay, so there's the timer. And let's make the wheel bigger. How's that looking?
It's getting better.
You want it bigger still? Okay.
Yeah.
I got a pretty big monitor. I just don't want to like explode anybody's computer. Is it? It's from, is that like Star Wars or something? I love how ceremonial that sounds. Okay. For the people who chose to do this activity, and by the way, it's all optional, right? You have the right to pass on any of this stuff. But for those who did this activity, was 3 minutes enough for that? Was that good? Just give yourself a quick score on the 10.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's keep going. So one of the points on the skills wheel was, do you have a substantive certification? And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, certifications, do they really matter? Like, I don't want to just be one of those guys that chases certifications and then I just have like 100 letters by my name and, it doesn't actually change anything about like how well I'm performing in my role or whatever. And I totally get that perspective. I used to have that perspective myself. A couple things changed it. First, I noticed that, so myself, I've spent a decade as a hiring manager, and I know that it's an important thing that I took into account. But I also found a study that showed that only 23% of hiring managers said that certifications were not important, whereas 41% of people applying for jobs didn't believe they were important. So all the people applying think, it doesn't make a difference. But all of the managers that are hiring, they do think it makes a difference. And, when you're applying for those jobs and there is the 200 people or whatever that have applied, you're going to get filtered out if you don't have, that, PMP or CAPM or whatever it is that's going to be the important skill for that role. So it doesn't take a lot of time, and I know that they can be expensive, but you don't have to get them all at once. You can chip away every couple years, you get another one kind of thing. It will make a big difference. Okay. So the other thing is like the cert, it doesn't validate that you're amazing at the job, but what it does is it puts you on the journey. It kind of gives you the license to practice so that you can start applying for the job, so you can get like day one on the job. That's what I like to think about. Like a CSM doesn't mean you are actually a master of Scrum, but it does mean somebody might hire you for day one where you can start practicing, and then you can get good over time. All right. So anyways, all that being said, I compiled a list of, in those 10 domains that we looked at, here are some of the most sought after and well-respected certifications. If you want to take a screenshot or something, feel free. I'm also going to send out these slides after, so don't worry about that. But if there is something in your list where maybe you weren't able to score any points yet, and you want to maybe focus, start your learning journey somewhere, maybe these will provide you with some options.
Where would you put the PMP?
Probably business. Actually, no. It's probably a mix. Where do I have process and project related work? Yeah, probably business fluency. Change leadership, maybe. Yeah. PMP was one of, well, actually, no, CAPM was one of my first certifications. And the CAPM was actually the thing that helped me get my first manager job. My manager wouldn't give me the role without it. And so I went and I got it kind of like begrudgingly. And like, that was like one of my first certifications. And it really opened a lot of doors for me after that. Okay. So moving on. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take some of the things that we talked about today, and no doubt you've got ideas swirling around in your head around like, what might be next for you in your career. And so we're going to try to put that together a little bit into a goal setting exercise. So this particular goal setting activity comes from a study that was done at University of Toronto with 3,000 students. And on average, the students who did this goal setting activity, their GPAs rose by 25%, and the dropout rate in that group decreased by 30%. So it's really effective. And I've used it with, I don't know, many, many leaders over the years in different contexts as well. Okay. So the way we're going to do this is you can use that same piece of paper you have out. You're probably going to want a piece of paper for this, but again, if you want to use a digital format, you can try. What we're going to do is we're going to get you to do some drawing. Okay. And the first thing I want you to do is I want you to draw. I want you to imagine the future that you want. Okay. I want you to imagine that you have a career where you're absolutely thriving. And you don't have to like get really specific about what your title is, where you're working, who's around. You don't have to get that stuff, right? Just think about the type of work you're doing, maybe the types of responsibilities you have. Think about maybe how you feel when you go to work, okay? Some other questions here on the side. What work energizes you? How much income satisfies your needs? What are the skills you're known for? And how do you feel when you're starting your workday? Okay. Again, this is the future you want. We're not thinking about any limitations. We're not thinking about any obstacles that might be in your way right now. Okay. So draw a picture of that, whatever comes to your mind. And we'll give you again 3 minutes to get into as vivid detail as you possibly can. I've got my timer there. And if you finish after just a minute, keep going, you know, really let yourself take this time for yourself. Right. Cool. So however far you got, we'll call that good enough. And before we go to the next part, I want to tell you a story about how this goal setting activity was created. So like all good studies, it first originated in mice and rats. And what they did was they wanted to evaluate what motivates rats the most. So what they did was they wafted the smell of cheese in front of the rat, and they tied a spring to their tail and measured how hard they would pull to get to the cheese. The next thing they did was they put the smell of a cat behind the mouse, and again they measured how hard the mouse would pull to get away from the cat, to get away from the danger. And which one do you think was stronger? Which drive? Any takers?
Cat.
Say again, Ratish?
Cat.
Cat. Anyone else for cat?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I'd probably run harder for, because I mean, you get cheese on any day, but you want to live to the next day to get cheese. So what it turned out was they were about the same. But what's really interesting was when they wafted both smells at the exact same time, the cheese in the front and the cat in the back, somehow these little mice, bless their hearts, they were able to find an extra gear and pull even harder, significantly harder, with both forces at the same time. And that's actually how this activity was designed. And so you, my friends, in this activity get to be a rat. Exciting, right? So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to have you draw a second picture. And this one is going to be the future, where if you don't do the things that you know you should do, and you succumb to all of your different weaknesses and potential flaws, and everything falls apart, what does that future look like? Some questions to prompt you on the right here that might help you, but go ahead and again, tell on yourself for this. This is your piece of paper. You're not going to show it to anyone else. And it can be really effective in planning a good future. So again, we're going to give you 3 minutes for that.
Intercom, we have 13 minutes left.
Thank you. Right. So that's actually it for this activity. That's all you need to do to get there, is set an intention like this, where now you know where you want to go. Now you know where you don't want to go. And every day you're going to be introduced to 1,000 little choices. And whether you intentionally kind of break this down into action steps or whatever or not, you will, now that you have a direction, be making small 2-degree tiller shifts in that direction every single day. And so, yeah, when it comes to goal setting, the actual like breaking it down into a strategy is a lot less important than at least knowing where you're going to go. So let's keep going. And yeah, I invite you to put that like picture in a shoebox or in a desk drawer somewhere, and just, take a look at it every once in a while. And you can be surprised when you look at those after even several years, how far maybe you've moved in that direction. Okay. And so, something to note is we can't draw a straight path to the future that you want, because it's never a straight path, right? And so that's kind of the reveal in this. We said that we were going to do Agile career mapping, but career mapping doesn't actually give you a real map. Life isn't like the directions that you get from Google Maps. We know the direction in real life, but we don't know how we're going to get there. And a quote that I love from Mike Tyson on this one was, he said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." And the important thing is, when you're on this journey, is just that you keep moving forward, just that you're always taking that next step, because it's that next step that's going to reveal to you what step you're supposed to take after that. So if you're stuck, if you haven't done something in a while, go read that book, go have coffee with that person, go apply for that job, go take that certification, even if it's not the one that's going to eventually be the thing that gets you there, just because it's the next step, okay? Ultimately, what I'm talking about is, this is Agile for your life. Don't conflate your goal with the path that you're going to take to get there, right? In Scrum, we create a product goal, which is this beautiful future direction, and then we inspect and adapt on our way there, right? It's the exact same thing, right? And so every day then, simply ask yourself, what can you say yes to on your path towards that future vision that you just drew? What can you say yes to right now? Probably you all know what it is. The last thing I want to talk about here for a couple minutes is this idea of having a blocking task. So I want to tell you 2 stories about a blocking task. And to me, a blocking task it's something you can do for your growth that you're not doing because it's maybe not the final goal, but it's stopping you from progressing on your greater journey, okay? So just as an example, when I was early in my career, I wanted to take this coach certification class, and it was going to cost me $20,000, which was insane amount of money today, but it was a really insane amount of money 15 years ago. And my employer wasn't going to pay for it. And I had this, and I was a full-time employee, and I had this feeling like, I'm your employee. You should be paying for my education because I'm using this here. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Why should I pay for this? I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm like, screw you. I'm not going to pay for my education, right? And so I didn't do it for several years. I eventually learned that only 30% of people actually have their professional developments funded by their employer. And I eventually realized that, I keep thinking about this one thing. And because I'm not doing that thing, I'm not doing anything else. And so eventually I just bit the bullet and I paid the money. And I took the classes, and they were amazing. And it ended up being a life-changing experience. I created relationships that I've had since then. And that ended up being, go figure, even though I never planned for it at the time, because I was just trying to grow in my role at the company, that ended up being the thing that allowed me to actually go and start my own business later on. And so that was my blocking task. I coached a person who was a CEO of a mid-sized electric motorcycle company in Europe. And his blocking task, the reason he was working with me was he really wanted to get a coaching certification through Scrum Alliance. And I was like, what are you doing, right? Like, what is up with this thing for you? Like, you're already a CEO and all this stuff. And his dream was to go to Harvard. But he knew, for whatever reason, that this thing was nagging at him around the coaching and just making sure that he had that skill set rounded before he took on any of these big things. And he had passion to go to Harvard, but he didn't have the energy for the coaching yet. And so the coaching was blocking him from really accomplishing everything he could in his life. And so when he recognized that this was his blocking task, he dedicated everything he had towards it, and he got it out of the way. And I'm happy to say he then went to Harvard, and he graduated from there with an executive MBA. So if somebody from work won't give you the opportunity, do it yourself. Don't wait. I waited 11 years at a company, waiting for them to recognize me and call me a director before they did. Then one day I started my own company, and all of a sudden I was a CEO in 24 hours. So whatever that thing is, you can just go and do it. Okay. So I'm going to give you all 1 minute on the clock with one of my 3 last minutes left to identify what is that thing that you can say yes to today or this week to either remove a blocking task or take one step towards that vision of the future that you designed for your career. 1 minute for that, and just go ahead and write that thing down. Okay. Awesome. So I hope you got some value out of this talk. I really appreciate you all taking the time to come here on Wednesday night when everyone's got families and dinner and exhausted from the days of craziness. It means a lot to me to be able to hang out with you here. I've got some information about me and where to find me. I'm a co-founder of Superheroes Academy and Fuse Facilitation. If you want to check out our websites, Bob had alluded to some different products. We offer most Scrum Alliance certifications through online classes. And we also have a ICF accredited professional coaching school. So definitely check us out. And yeah, I think that's the end of my time. But if anybody wants to stick around and chat or have questions, I'm happy to hang out. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Okay, well, thank you, Erkan. This was I, I really appreciated the session. It was really valuable, especially what you went through with the Agile is Dead thing, because you hear all different perspectives of it. And I like, what you shared today.